This is your one and only 𝐈𝐸𝐻81 with your daily dose of video goodness, and today we are going to talk about which is better in Dying Light 2, the bow or the crossbow. Let's get to it. So I keep seeing all these videos talking about how great the crossbow is, that it's like the best weapon, you need to get it, you need to side with the peacekeepers in order to do it. And that is the downside to getting the crossbow, is you have to choose the peacekeepers as your faction that you give everything to for at least 4 times in a row if you want to get a hold of the crossbow. And that's a pretty big sacrifice because that sacrifices a lot of mobility options, and those travel options can come in extremely handy because the only way to really get around the map is on foot and glider. And some of those travel options would affect your ability to use the glider more. So I'm just going to tell you right from the get-go, I am partial to the bow over the crossbow. I don't like the crossbow for a few different reasons, which I will cover at the end of the video. But for now, I'm just going to present you with the data so that you can make your own decision. Then if you care, you can stick around and find out why I think it's a better option to go with the free people and ditch the crossbow. So first things first, the crossbow does not have headshot damage. If you use the bow gets additional damage if you shoot something in the head. And you can see here in these clips using our test subject that this is very clearly true. In these clips, I am using a tier 6 crossbow and a tier 5 bow. The tier 6 crossbow does considerably more damage than the bow, but the bow just absolutely decimates this guy with a headshot. And when I say a big difference in damage, I'm talking 250 some to 112. And if you are wearing all ranger gear and you had a high enough increase in damage, I'm absolutely convinced you could one-shot this dude with a headshot from the bow. And when I was lining these shots up in my editing software, I wasn't super convinced on the crossbow not having the tiniest bit of headshot damage. So I actually took the health bars into Photoshop and lined them up as you can see here in the clip. And yeah, it's the exact same whether you're shooting the body or the head. So the next thing I wanted to test was damage drop with a distance to see if that made any difference in the amount of damage the crossbow does. And it does indeed make a difference. At closer range, you get more damage from the crossbow than you do further away. I did test this with the bow as well, although you will not see a drop in damage from the bow unless you are a considerable distance from the target. At the range that you start to see drop off on the crossbow, you still get full damage from the bow. Also, from what I can tell, the headshots are not affected by this drop in damage paired with distance. Next thing I tested was serial shot. So for those of you who do not know, serial shot is a skill that you can unlock that allows you to shoot up to 3 targets at one time. You mark the targets and you fire and you shoot all 3 targets, or if you've marked 3, up to 3 at one time. The crossbow does not have the ability to use this skill. You can use this skill with the bow, of course, because that's what it's for, and you can also use this skill with throwing knives, but you cannot use this skill with the crossbow. Next thing I wanted to test was time to kill. So basically seeing if I could kill this guy faster with the bow than I could the crossbow. I could not. I tried really hard and got really good time with the bow, nailing with 2 headshots as quickly as I could in order to maximize my damage. But in the end, all you have to do is walk up with the crossbow and spam the button a bunch of time, waste a ton of arrows, and kill him. It took me 2 arrows to kill him with the bow and 3 to kill him with the crossbow. Keep in mind, through all of these tests, I was using the basic bolts and the basic arrows. But as you can see from this clip, the time is not that much different. And once again, if I was wearing very high damage archer gear or ranger gear, whatever it's called, it is possible that I could one-shot him with a headshot with the bow, saving me 2 extra arrows, and it would also be much faster. I want to point out one large advantage that the crossbow has over the bow, and that is damage scaling. It scales with you as you level, so you can get it at any point in the game at any level. Well, not any point, obviously. You got to get to a certain point in the game, but you can get it at any level, and it doesn't matter because as you level, it will gain damage, and it gains a considerable amount of damage as well. I tested this and it went from 171 damage to 254 when I leveled from level 5 to level 6. That's a total of 83 damage with one level, and I'm not sure if it's going to be that much every time, but from 5 to 6 it gained 83 damage. Now the downside is with a bow, you're going to have to buy a new one every time you level, and getting a hold of one could be a bit of a pain in the butt. It was for me. It took me a little bit to finally get one to spawn in a vendor, and then it cost me like $5 grand. While that's not the biggest of deals because it's relatively easy to farm that much money, it's still a pain in the butt because I have to go farm that back. And if you have the crossbow, you just don't have to worry about it because it's just going to level with you. So that's one really big advantage the crossbow has over the bow. So those are all the data points that I gathered. Do with that information what you will. For me, it was all about testing for efficiency. And when it comes down to it, the bow is more efficient than the crossbow for the fact that you can get those headshots, and that is why I prefer the bow. Now, the downside is the bow has the draw time and it has the stamina use while you are drawing and holding a draw. This isn't really that big of a deal that I have found. I haven't had much issues with it because essentially you can scope in and line up your shot and then draw and then release the arrow, which is essentially what you have to do if you don't want to mark the target with the serial shot. Honestly, I kind of wish I wouldn't have got the serial shot. I do like it for the knives, but it kind of ruins, well, it doesn't ruin, but it makes headshots a little more difficult because you have to scope first, line up your shot, and then quickly fire that shot. You can't hold it and take time to aim. Otherwise, serial shot kicks in, and serial shot always aims for center mass. If you are using the crossbow, this isn't a big deal to aim for center mass because, as you saw, there is no difference in damage between center mass and a headshot, so you could easily get serial shot and use that specifically for knives and just not worry about it for the crossbow. Essentially what they have done here is the crossbow is your machine gun or your assault rifle, and the bow is your sniper rifle. And while it's not too difficult to get a hold of resources, well, most resources, feathers are a little more difficult than others. And wasting arrows like that just seems frivolous to me when you can use the bow and spend less arrows. And you also have to give up a lot of travel options that you would get from the free people or free folk, whatever they're called, by siding with the PK. The PK gives you traps that are just kind of randomly tossed throughout the place, and I feel like the travel options that the free people give you are going to be a lot more handy for getting around the map, because getting around the map, obviously, like I said, you're doing that on foot. That's your only option besides the glider. And if you've already made the choices and you've already went for the crossbow, it really sucks because there's no way to go back unless you've backed up your save file and you have a previous save that you can go back to, and then you have to play through all of that again, which could be really frustrating, which unfortunately is something I think I'm going to end up doing. So let me know what you all think about these data points down in the comments section. I'm eager to hear your all's thoughts. Are you still happy with the crossbow? Are you disappointed to find out that it can't do headshots and has a very severe damage drop with distance, as well as the inability to use serial shot? Or do you just not care and you've had a friend jump in your game and you've already duped 9,000 arrows, so it doesn't make any difference to you? I, for one, don't care for the traps, would rather have better mobility and prefer the bow. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified when I upload other videos. I want to give an absolute massive shout out and thank you to my supporters on Patreon for making this episode possible. Y'all are absolutely amazing people. If you would like to join my Elite Crew Patreon supporters, please check out the link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If you're shy, you don't like to comment, just hit that thumbs up button and show your support. Until next time, thanks for watching.